I should have trusted my gut. From the very first day I met her, something about Ava felt off. But I was desperate for a place to stay, and she was offering the perfect solution, a cheap room in a decent part of town. Looking back, that decision was the worst one I ever made. It all started when I saw the listing online. Room available, female roommate preferred, rent negotiable. The pictures showed a clean, cozy apartment, and the rent was shockingly low for the area. I sent a message, and within the hour, Ava responded, "Come over tonight. If we get along, the room is yours." It was almost too easy, but I convinced myself I was just lucky. When I arrived at her apartment, she greeted me with a warm smile. She was stunning. Long auburn hair, piercing blue eyes, and an effortless charm that immediately put me at ease. "I just hate living alone," she said with a laugh. "It's always nice to have someone around." The apartment was even better in person. Clean, neat, almost too neat. Something about it felt staged, like it wasn't really lived in. But Ava was friendly, funny, and within an hour of chatting, she offered me the room. "Move in tomorrow if you want," she said, grinning. "I'll even help you unpack." I should have trusted my instincts, but instead I said yes. That first night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to a strange noise. It was soft, almost like whispering, coming from the other side of my bedroom wall. Ava's room. I strained to listen, but the voices were too faint. Maybe she was talking in her sleep. The next morning over coffee, I casually mentioned it. "I think I heard you talking last night," I said, half laughing. "Do you sleep talk?" Ava looked up from her cup, her expression unreadable. "No," she said simply. Then after a pause, she added, "Maybe you were dreaming." I let it go, but that night it happened again, and the next. Always around 3 a.m., always the same faint whispers. Sometimes I could hear Ava's voice, sometimes another voice, deeper, unfamiliar. But every time I got up to check, her door was shut, and the apartment was silent. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. I started locking my door at night, though I couldn't explain why. It just felt necessary. Things got weirder when Ava started inviting people over. It was always different people, and she never introduced me. Young men, mostly. They'd show up in the evening, spend a few hours in her room, and then leave. Or at least, that's what I assumed, because I never actually saw them leave. One night, I woke up to a loud thud. My heart pounded as I sat up, listening. A shuffle, then silence. I tiptoed to my bedroom door, pressing my ear against it. The air felt thick, suffocating. And then, I heard the sound of something dragging. I wanted to check, to peek through the door, but my body refused to move. I stayed frozen until the sound stopped. The next morning, the apartment was as pristine as ever. No signs of struggle, no avenue. When she returned later that afternoon, I asked casually, "Did your friend stay over last night?" She smiled. "Nope, he left hours ago." Then she turned to the sink, rinsing something dark from her hands. I felt sick. I decided to investigate. One evening when Ava went out, I tried her bedroom door, locked. I checked the spare key drawer, empty. Then I noticed something I hadn't before, the door to the small storage closet at the end of the hall. Unlike the rest of the apartment, which was impeccably clean, this door was smudged, almost as if someone had grabbed it with dirty hands. I hesitated before gripping the handle and turning it slowly. It creaked open, revealing a staircase leading down. I knew the building had no basement. I shouldn't have gone down, but I did. The stairs led to a dimly lit room with stone walls. A single flickering bulb buzzed overhead. My stomach clenched as I took in my surroundings. A worn-down mattress lay in the corner. Chains bolted to the wall. A heavy, metallic smell filled the air. I stepped closer, my breath shaky. That's when I saw them. 3 IDs scattered on the table, each belonging to a missing person, each belonging to one of the men I'd seen with Ava. And then, footsteps. Ava's voice floated down from above. "Why did you have to go snooping, Sophie?" I spun, racing up the stairs. But before I could reach the top, she appeared in the doorway, smiling. In her hand, she held a knife. "You weren't supposed to see this." Adrenaline kicked in. I grabbed the nearest object, a rusted metal pole, and swung. Ava dodged, but I pushed forward, slamming into her with all my strength. She tumbled back, crashing into the kitchen counter. I didn't wait. I ran. I barely made it to the front door before I felt her grip on my arm. "Stay!" she hissed. I twisted, breaking free, and stumbled into the hallway screaming. A neighbor's door swung open. An older man stepped out, startled. "Help!" I shrieked. Ava froze. Then without a word, she backed into the apartment and slammed the door shut. The police arrived minutes later. Inside, they found everything. The IDs, the chains, the bloodstains, but no Ava. She was gone. That was 6 months ago. I moved to another city, changed my number, and tried to forget. But last night, I got a message from an unknown number. "Miss me? Ava is still out there, and I know she's looking for me." I always believed that fear was just a feeling, something you could control if you kept a rational mind. But that was before I met my new roommate, Nathan. Before I realized the horror I had unknowingly invited into my life. Before the nightmares started bleeding into reality. It all started when I moved into my new apartment, a small but cozy place near campus. My previous roommate had graduated, and I needed someone to split the rent. That's when I met Nathan, a quiet, polite guy who seemed normal at first glance. He worked night shifts at a nearby hospital, which meant I had the apartment to myself most evenings. At first, everything was great. The arrangement was perfect. He paid his share on time, kept to himself, and never brought people over. The only odd thing was his room. He always kept it locked. I figured he was just private, so I didn't question it. Until the noises started. It was subtle at first. At night, I would hear faint scratching sounds coming from his room. Sometimes it sounded like whispering, but I convinced myself it was just my imagination. Maybe the walls were thin, and I was hearing the neighbors. But then, I started hearing it even when Nathan wasn't home. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of something moving inside his room. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and listened. The sound stopped abruptly. My rational mind told me it was nothing, but my gut screamed otherwise. Nathan wasn't home. I had seen him leave for his shift hours ago. The next day, I casually asked Nathan if he ever heard strange noises at night. He looked at me for a long moment before shaking his head. "You're probably just tired," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That should have been my first clue. That night, I stayed up, determined to figure out what was going on. At exactly 3 a.m., the noises returned, this time louder. I gathered my courage, crept toward his door, and pressed my ear against it. Then I heard it. A voice, a soft, pleading voice from inside his locked room. "Help me." My blood ran cold. I stumbled back, heart racing. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. The voice had been too real, too desperate. For the next few nights, I hardly slept. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, waiting for 3 a.m. And like clockwork, the sounds would return. The scratching, the whispers, the quiet sobbing. I started avoiding Nathan. He must have noticed because one evening he casually mentioned, "You look exhausted." Bad dreams? His tone was light, but something in his eyes made my stomach twist. I forced a laugh and nodded. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." He smiled, but there was something unsettling about it. "You should get more rest." That night, I made my decision. I needed to know what was behind my door. The next day, while Nathan was at work, I searched for his spare key. It took nearly an hour, but I finally found it hidden in the kitchen drawer, beneath a stack of papers. My hands trembled as I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open. The smell hit me first, a rancid metallic stench that made my stomach lurch. Then my eyes adjusted to the dim light, and I saw it. The room was nearly empty except for a small mattress in the corner and something else. A cage. Inside it was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, her wrists bound in rusted shackles. She turned her head toward me, eyes wide with terror. "Please," she whispered. "He'll be back soon." I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the key. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. The woman looked at me with desperation, her lips trembling. "You have to help me," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's going to kill me." My mind raced. This wasn't just some misunderstanding. This wasn't some crazy prank. This was real. I rushed forward, fumbling with the locks on her chains. My hands were slick with sweat, my heart pounding in my ears. Then the front door creaked open. Nathan was home. I barely had time to react before he stepped into the room, his face unreadable. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Then his lips curled into a smile, a slow, unsettling smile. "You weren't supposed to see this," he murmured. Before I could scream, he lunged. I don't remember much after that. There was a struggle. I fought with everything I had, the desperation giving me strength. Somehow, I managed to grab the lamp from his nightstand and smash it against his head. He crumpled unconscious. I grabbed the woman, half carrying her as we stumbled out of the apartment. My hands fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The police arrived within minutes and Nathan was arrested on the spot. Turns out he had been keeping her captive for months. She was a missing student, one whose face had been plastered across posters all over town, and I had been living with her kidnapper. Days later, I returned to pack my things. The apartment was eerily quiet without him. But as I stood in the hallway, staring at his locked door one last time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching me. I never found out what made those noises at night when Nathan wasn't home, and I don't think I ever want to know. I moved out the next day, found a new apartment, started over. But at night, when everything is quiet, I still hear it. A whisper, a scratching sound, a voice that says, "Help me." And sometimes I wonder, did I really escape? Or did I just take the nightmare with me? Some monsters don't hide under the bed. They smile at you every morning, cook your meals, and tell you they love you, until you discover the truth too late. Clara and I were more than best friends. For 25 years, she had been my sister in everything but blood. We met at a community fundraiser when I was 22, and from that moment on, we were inseparable. She was by my side during my wedding, held my hand when I gave birth to my daughter Lily, and comforted me through my divorce when my husband, Ethan, left without warning. She was the rock that kept me grounded, the light in my darkest days. I never doubted her love for me or for Lily. So when I had to undergo major back surgery, I didn't think twice before asking Clara to move in for a while to help take care of Lily. She eagerly accepted, packing her bags without hesitation. It was a relief knowing my daughter would be in safe hands, but looking back, I realized that was the moment my nightmare began. After my surgery, the first few weeks were a blur of pain and medication. Clara was perfect, attentive, caring, always knowing what I needed before I even asked. She cooked, cleaned, and made sure Lily was happy. I was beyond grateful. Then the exhaustion started. At first, I blamed it on recovery, but it felt different. No matter how much I rested, I only got weaker. My limbs were heavy, my head clouded. Every time I tried to get up, dizziness would force me back down. And then came the nightmares, vivid, twisted images of being trapped in a dark room while someone whispered my name in the shadows. I brushed it off as post-surgery stress. But soon I noticed something strange about Clara. Her behavior shifted. She became overly possessive of Lily, making decisions without consulting me. She started calling Lily her little girl and dismissing me whenever I tried to discipline her. More than once I caught her whispering things to Lily, things that made my daughter look confused and scared. One night I woke up to find Clara standing in my bedroom doorway. Just standing, watching. My heart pounded as I asked her what she was doing. "You called for me," she said softly. I hadn't. As days turned into weeks, I realized Lily had started acting differently too. She became distant, refusing to meet my gaze. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, she would just shake her head and mumble, "I don't know." Then one afternoon, I overheard something that sent shivers down my spine. Lily and Clara were in the kitchen, and I was resting in the living room. Clara's voice was low, almost like a lullaby. "You don't need to worry about your mom anymore, sweetheart. Soon, it'll just be us." My breath caught in my throat. My own body, already weak, felt frozen in place. I wanted to stand up, to storm in there and demand answers, but I couldn't. The fear, the sickness, the exhaustion, it was all consuming. That night I forced myself out of bed. I had to be sure, had to check. With slow, trembling steps, I made my way to Clara's room. Her door was slightly open, candlelight flickering inside, and that's when I heard her whispering. "She's almost gone, just a little longer." I peeked in and saw her holding a small vial, pouring something into my nighttime tea. My stomach churned. She was poisoning me. I backed away, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I had to get help, but who would believe me? Clara was the perfect friend, the selfless caregiver. I had no proof except Lily. I found her in her room, curled up in bed. When I touched her shoulder, she flinched. "Lily," I whispered, has she done anything to you?" At first, she said nothing. Then, after a long pause, she nodded, her small fingers gripping my arm. "She says you don't love me anymore, that you're going to leave." My blood turned to ice. Clara had been poisoning my mind as well as my body. The next morning, I faked taking my tea. I acted weaker than ever, pretending the poison was working. Clara watched me closely, her smile too sweet, too knowing. That night, I sent a message to an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I told her everything and asked her to come over, to pretend it was a casual visit. She agreed. When she arrived, I played along with Clara's facade, but my friend wasn't fooled. While Clara was distracted, she took my tea and later had it tested. The results were undeniable. High doses of sedatives and a slow-acting poison meant to mimic illness. The police were called. When they arrested Clara, she didn't scream, she didn't fight. She just smiled at me, a cold, empty smile. "You should have just let go," she whispered as they took her away. Weeks passed, my body began to heal, but the wounds left on my mind and heart would take longer. Lily and I moved to a new home, leaving behind the darkness that had almost consumed us. But sometimes, late at night, I hear whispers, feel the presence of someone watching. Maybe it's just the trauma. Maybe it's the memories haunting me. Or maybe Clara left something behind. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, I found a note under her pillow. Written in a familiar hand, it sent a chill down my spine. "You can never escape me." I checked the locks twice that night, and still I didn't sleep.